this week lost a big fight in Tennessee at a Volkswagen plant. Michelle, staying on the point about the UAW failing in the South, and for a lot of us on the right, we think that's a good thing. Explain it for us, will you?
Yeah, well, I also think this is a trend. If you look at polls, Americans don't have a favorable view of unions, and membership for unions continues to go down year after year. People are not happy with unions. Why are you going to give them all this money just for the unions to go give it to the Democratic Party? Because that's what ends up happening. You end up just paying for all of these elected officials to the Democratic Party.
But Michelle, let me educate you on something. In a right-to-work state, they don't have to pay union dues to go to Democratic Party.
Explain it to me, Bob.
No, let me do this. To pay a little attention. In right-to-work states, if you unionize, you do not have to give your money to the party, to the union, to give to Democrats. They don't have to give any of them, okay? Just so you get that straight.
Michelle?
I'm not even going to answer that. That is so the way you just spoke to me was so condescending and inappropriate. I'm not even going to.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to be condescending. I just wanted to try to correct you.
So we just heard Bob Beckel and Michelle Fields debating unions, right-to-work states, and the VW plant in Tennessee, which just turned down a bid by the UAW. So Michelle's point was that Americans do not have a favorable view of unions. Membership for unions continues to go down, and people are not happy with unions, so why are they going to give them all their money in the form of dues to go to the Democrat Party? Fair enough. And Bob's response, by the way, in a very incredibly rude and kind of condescending way.
Michelle, let me educate you on something.
Very nice, Bob. Bob's response was that in a right-to-work state, you don't have to give money to unions. Okay, fair enough. Let's look into it, shall we? So we'll start with Michelle's point that Americans don't have a favorable view of unions, and according to this Pew Research poll, 42% of Americans would like to see unions have less influence, and just 25% would like to see them have more. So I would say that pretty much supports Michelle's opinion.
Michelle, let me educate you on something.
And also, union membership has gone down. Well, in 1983, union membership in the entire workforce was 20.1%. In 2012, it's 11.3%. Now, if you take that into private sector versus public sector, well, then you see that the public sector unions are 35.9% of their employees are unionized. But in the private sector, it's only 6.6%. So once again, Michelle is accurate there.
Michelle, let me educate you on something.
Let's look at what Bob said, that in the right-to-work state, you don't have to give money to unions. No employee in the United States can be legally required to be a full dues-paying formal union member, but in many states, an employee can be forced to pay certain union dues or be fired from his job. Yes, those are called non-right-to-work states. But if you look at the National Right to Work Legal Defense Foundation, this is the huge loophole that I see. You cannot be required to be a member of a union or pay monies as a condition of employment unless the collective bargaining agreement between you and your employer contains provisions requiring employees to either join the union or pay union fees. That's a loophole. So imagine for a second if the UAW had won in Tennessee. You don't think the union could intimidate VW into making it so that the non-union members also have to pay a certain amount of dues or a certain amount of fees? Of course they could.
Michelle, let me educate you on something.
So now let's get to the most compelling point that Michelle made, was that people don't want their money to go to unions, which end up going to the Democrat Party. Is that true? Well, this is a website called opensecrets.org, and what they do is they basically just look at how much money is going into politics and where the money is coming from. So this is the top all-time donors from 1989 to 2014, and if you go down the list, that's Republican, that's Democrat, and that's on the fence, meaning you're giving to both sides. Number 2, American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees. Union, 81% to Democrats. National Education Association. Union, 61% to Democrats. International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, 92% to Democrats. United Auto Workers, 71% to Democrats, 0 to Republicans. Carpenters Union, 74% to Democrats. The Service Employees International Union, 84% to Democrats. The Laborers Union, 85% to Democrats. American Federation of Teachers, 89% to Democrats. Communication Workers of Americans, 86%. Teamsters Union, 89% to Democrats. United Food and Commercial Workers Union, 86% to Democrats. So Bob Beckel is either living in a dream world or he just can't look at numbers if he believes that if you're part of a union, your dues are not going to go directly to the Democrat Party.
Michelle, let me educate you on something.
On another note, you always hear from the left that the Koch brothers are just buying American politics and they own American politics and they just have too much influence. It turns out that they're number 59th on the list. In the top 60 spots of who gives money to politicians and political campaigns, 6 of the top 10 are unions. They gave more than $278 million, with the vast majority of it going to the Democrats. So one other thing that I found really, really fascinating is I decided to pull up a map of right-to-work states versus non-right-to-work states. This is from the National Right-to-Work Legal Defense Foundation. This is a map of the United States. These blue states are right-to-work states, okay? All of these are right-to-work states. This is the electoral map of Barack Obama 2012. Do you see a similarity there? Do you see how close those are? How many of these right-to-work states voted Republican versus how many of the non-right-to-work states voted Democrat? Do you really think that right-to-work states and the Democrat Party is interested in workers? No. They're interested in turning red states blue and never losing a presidential election again. By the way, while we're on the subject of electoral maps and how they break down, I just thought it would be interesting to bring up the fact that Bob Beckel ran Walter Mondale's campaign in 1984 against Reagan, and this is the result of Bob Beckel running that campaign. Bob Beckel won this blue state. Good job, Bob.